All right, so we'll go ahead and get started now. Again, my name is Tom Lyons. I'm a senior engineer over here at Inflow Communications. Today's webinar is going to cover how to troubleshoot your Mitel or ShoreTel Contact Center deployment with the ECC Diagnostics tool. This is going to be a fairly low-level, quick webinar designed to show you a couple tricks to take a look at your system health, the ability to clear up certain common issues, and other things to look for. Again, my name is Tom Lyons. I'm a senior engineer with Inflow Communications. I've been here for just under 6 years now, and I am very well versed not only in the contact center environment, but also in the base PBX system, as well as Pure Cloud and Ring Central. I'll be taking you through the webinar today. Before we get started, have a couple other webinars coming up that we would like to advertise to make sure if there's anything that would work for you, it would be something that you guys can jump on. We do have one coming up on the 17th, so in 2 days, creative ways to use your IVR. So this will be extra ways and more creative ways that you can implement your contact center system to provide the expectations that you have for your company, such as pulling up data dips, stuff like that. On the 5th of November, we will have a webinar on how to easily solve your on-call challenges in the Mitel and ShoreTel environment. So this will be how to set up an on-call rotation, things to consider for setting that up, and tips and tricks to make that as optimized as possible. On the 7th of November, we will be doing a end user training for the Connect client. So if you have any new users that are coming into the system that need to learn how to use the system, this will be a great way to get them acquainted with it. And then on November 12th, we also have a webinar on how to apply SSL certs for your Edge Gateway and more. We're going to go through how to actually apply the certificates to make your system secure for a variety of devices, including the ShoreTel system itself, as well as the Edge devices that you may use, such as the Edge Gateway or the SA100 conferencing appliance. A little bit about Inflow Communications before we get started today. Inflow Communications has a sole focus on unified communications and contact center solutions. Voice is what we do. We don't branch into networking or any other facet of the IT world. We focus on voice, and as a result, we're very well versed in what's going on in your voice environment, and anybody you get on the support side will be able to help you out with whatever you need. We are a ShoreTel and Mitel Platinum partner, as well as partnered with Ring Central and Genesis Pure Cloud. We have offices and employees in 10 states at this point, and we cover over 200,000 endpoints and over 800 customers nationwide, and in many cases, even worldwide. And we are maniacal about the customer experience. We want to make sure that you get all the information that you require as quickly as we can get it to you. And we want to make sure you have everything you need and more to make sure that your voice environment is exactly the way you want it to be, and you're getting everything and more that you can out of it. Here is a few of our customers that are under our banner now that we support. And as always, if you have any questions, there is a little question box in the GoToWebinar that you can use to ask questions. I will answer those on the fly to the best of my ability. If there is anything that does come up, which does happen from time to time, that I need to research, I will grab your email address and I will get you that information as well. That being said, this is a fairly low-level webinar today. We're going to go through the Diagnostics Console, a few of the features, what to look for, what's normal, what's not, and some tips and tricks to actually make your system work the way that you want. I expect this will take about 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and get this started here. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and pull over a server here so we can take a look at it. And you'll see I have a applet called the Contact Center Diagnostics Console up. And I'm actually going to close this to show you guys what it looks like here. When you actually start up your system or need to run this, and this can be run from a supervisor workstation if the supervisor tools are installed, or it can be run from the server itself, there is typically a link that will say Diagnostics Console that will appear on the desktop. In this case, there is not. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open up the Start menu, and I'm going to type in Diag. And you'll see it pops up the Shoreware Contact Center Diagnostics Console. One thing that I do want to point out, because on a number of systems based on the permissions, this tool does not typically work unless you open it in a certain way. When I open this tool, I always recommend that instead of just opening it, I always right-click it and run it as administrator. What you can run into if you don't open this tool in this way is that it will accept your user and password, but then it will just close and it will not actually open up the following dialog box. So it'll look like the tool itself is broken. If you open it running as administrator, that should alleviate that issue and allow you to get into the system. When you open it, you're going to get to this login console where it's going to ask for a username and password. This is going to be a username and password for a supervisor account in the contact center system. If you're using the older 14.2 deployment of contact center, then you can use the built-in supervisor account for this, as this does work with the Diagnostics Console. If you are in Connect, then you will actually need to use a supervisor account that has been set up because they changed the way that they use the authentication for this tool. So you would have to actually build a supervisor in to use this tool. The built-in super user account does not work for this. So I'm going to go ahead and log in and type correctly. And when it logs in, you're going to see a screen very similar to this. So you're going to have on the left pane, you're going to have some system messages. This is typically blank, and you want it to be blank. If there are messages in there, either something is happening or something has happened. And typically, those will be fairly easy to read messages, but you typically won't see anything in there. On the right side, you have a bunch of different radio buttons with corresponding colors to tell you what the status is of all of your environment objects. So to go through this here real quick, just from the top down, ACD is going to be the contact center system itself. If that's ever red, that's telling you that the system thinks that there's something wrong with the contact center system itself. And if I'm being honest, in many cases, if there is an issue with the contact center system deployment at the ACD level, the Diagnostics Console may not even load. And that might be because there might be an issue with something like the service that requires that this requires in order to run. In which case, if you're having an issue like that, you're probably having overall issues, and that's probably reboot time at that point. IVR are the ports that the system uses in order to actually allow calls into the system. You want to see this as green as well. If you see this yellow or red, there could be an issue with those ports, and that might require some looking into. PBX is going to be your connection to the base system. So that's going to be how those calls get into the environment. And again, if that's yellow or red, that means that you may not be getting your calls into the contact center environment because the contact center can't actually see the base system. And then the other ones are more of an optional setting, just because a lot of environments don't actually have these features. You'll notice that there is chat, which is actually currently yellow, email, and then redundancy, which is gray, and then CCIR. Chat is if you have any web chat set up in the contact center environment, which is supported. It is not a very commonly used item. And the important piece to note here is if it's not being used, it will always show as yellow. There's no way to make that just show green. And that's not an indicator that there's anything wrong. Now, if you have yellow or red and you do use chat, there could be something going on. Email is much the same. You can use email queues in the contact center environment. Again, not often used. It will always show green unless there's an issue. So even if it's not set up, it will show green. In this particular case, it's not set up on this system. So this is a good indicator of that. Redundancy is if you have a secondary server. If you do have a secondary server set up for redundancy and it is properly licensed and everything is functioning properly, that will display as green. If you don't have a redundant server, it will show gray or offline, which is what it shows here. And yellow or red will typically come with a corresponding system message to let you know what is wrong. In a lot of cases, that could just simply be that the secondary server is still replicating data over, and it will be available, but it's just not quite available yet. Otherwise, the system message will let you know what might be going on with the redundancy deployment. If you do ever see that, give us a call. Let us take a look at it, because it could be a number of things that could be causing that problem. And then finally, CCIR. CCIR is your reporting database. So if you use ECC Bright Metrics, which I imagine many of you might do, you would need a CCIR server in the environment in order to support that, and you would want to see this green at all times. If you don't see that green, if you see that yellow or red, that means that CCIR is not actually pulling data, and we may need to take a look at that server. And in cases like that, or the redundancy, or any of the top three showing yellow or red, my recommendation there is give us a call, because that means that there might be something else going on in the system that we can take a look at and fix for you. or give you some recommendations based on what we're seeing. And those are going to be a little bit more advanced problems typically than what we're going to go over today. So that's the base of the Diagnostics Console, but there's a whole lot more you can do in it. And specifically, what we're going to look at today are a couple of items under diagnostics. And as well as we are going to look at the IVR view, which is a very handy indicator as well. The diagnostics view is going to let you look at the agents that are logged in, the calls that are active in the system. You can even take a look and see if there's any scheduled callbacks, if you have callbacks and queue set up in your system, and dial lists if you do outbound dial campaigns. We're going to actually focus on agents and active calls today because that's going to be where the majority of the troubleshooting that can be done at a glance without affecting the rest of the system can be done. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on agents here. And you'll see it brings up a number of all the agents that are built into the system. And there's a bunch of different fields that you can see here. So the first field, just so we know what we're looking at here, I'm just going to go over the first 4 fields here. The number is going to be the extension number or the agent number for the user. And then next to that will be their name. So you can see how that ties together with the user here. And then the device is actually the extension that they're using to talk to ECC. The contact center environment will allow users to hot desk as needed, depending on your environment. So they can log in from anywhere. And so this will let you know where they're actually logging in from. Now, as you can see here, and this is normally the case, the device number and the agent number are matching up. This allows you to really easily and quickly diagnose issues, which is nice to see, because then you don't have to go looking for a separate device number or anything. That's why we always recommend this as a best practice. Then finally, you also have a state, which is their call state. And you can see here, I can see if agents are idle. If they're on a call, for example, this user is on a call ACD talk, I can see if somebody's on release, and I can see why, such as Jamie, second from the top, is on lunch right now. You can also see if people are on other kinds of calls. So if somebody's on an extension to extension call, it'll say that they're busy. If they are reserved for an outbound call, it'll show them O.reserve, meaning that they are reserved to take an outbound, to place an outbound call for a callback. So you can see all of this from a quick glance. And then you can actually also see the number of calls, chats, and emails they're on at the same time, and if they're maxed out on interactions. The majority of our setups are set up to only allow 1 interaction at a time. So typically, if you're on a call or you have a chat or an email, you're going to be maxed out. As you can see here, there's a user in ACD talk, and they are maxed out. This page does refresh every 5 seconds to give you more up-to-date information. And what this can be nice for is if you have issues with people either not able to make calls, or they're sitting in what they appear to be idle and they're not getting calls, or they are having issues logging in. This is a great page to take a look at that, because you can not only take a look at their settings and if they're in the system, but you can see if the system thinks they're on a call, if there may be something else going on, and you also have a few other options. So just as an example, I'm not going to do this to knock somebody out, but if I click on this user and I right-click, I can actually log him out of all of his groups. I could log him off completely, or I could even show all of his interactions that are being handled by this agent at this time. So you can see all of these options. So if I click on Greg, for example, who's on a call, and click on Show Agents Interactions, I can see that Greg is on a voice call. I can see it's currently in a ACD talk state. I can even see the caller ID, and then I can see 2 different devices. The first would be the actual phone call that comes in. That's going to generally have a very long string of numbers. I can see that it's connected. Device 2, which is going to be the agent's extension, and the device is also connected. Where this comes into play, and many of you may have run into this from time to time, are stuck calls in ECC. Stuck calls in ECC can result in the user appearing to be idle, such as this user is here, but no calls routing to them in the contact center environment. Using this diagnostic tool, we can actually fix this fairly rapidly. And the way to do this is to take a note of the user's device number. So for example, Greg here, I can see his device number is 825.06421. These guys use big extensions. And I can use this to actually go into the active calls tab, which we're about to look at. And if we need to, we can clear the call. So I'm going to go ahead and close this tab here. And the next tab I'm going to look at is active calls. Active calls is going to show you all of the calls that are currently in the system. And it's going to show you a call ID that you can use to actually track the call, the device of the incoming call, which, like I noted, is going to typically have a large string of numbers, its state, the secondary device, which is going to be your agent that is taking the call, and then their state. If I right-click on one of these, you'll notice I have an option to clear a call. When it says clear a call, what that does is that this actually disconnects the interaction. And so you want to use this with care, but what you would do here is you would make a note of the user's extension that is having the issue. And if you look in the Agents tab, and let's say your user is definitely not on a phone call, but you see in Contact Center that they are showing as on a call, as Scott Johnson is here, then you can take this device number, go into Contact Center, and find his device number under device 2. And if sure enough there is a call in there, if you go in, you right-click and you clear that call, that's going to clear out the call on the Contact Center side. If it was a live call, it will disconnect it, which is why you want to make sure that you're very careful. But you can use this to actually clear that call in the Contact Center, which should allow him to start grabbing calls from there on out, because the issue is actually that the server thinks that he's on a call when he's not. This can happen for a variety of reasons, including network connectivity issues or a hiccup with the server itself. It is fairly often something that comes up once and doesn't come back for quite a long time. If you're running into multiple issues with that, you can use this as a triage step while you get in touch with us so that you're at least operating mostly unimpacted while we try to figure out the root cause for you. So it's a nice, quick tool to be able to fix that option. That's really the most common issue that we see in Contact Center. But there are a few others that you may see. And typically, it's going to either be with specific agents or all agents, depending on what's going on with the server, in which case, if you're having an issue with all your agents logging in, typically that's going to be a scenario where we might request a reboot because there might be something going on with the server's ability to actually handle those incoming connections. Or you might see an issue with the IVR ports. And you can actually see this if you go to File and open IVR View. This is an option that is super handy for trying to figure out what might be going on with your route points here. So these are all, if you look at the left side, these are route points that all exist in the system as IVR points. And you'll notice they're all sequential, just as your setup probably is as well. You can see the status of the route point and if it's working for anything here. Its station, if you have multiple IVR servers, it will actually tell you which server these are on. For just about everybody here, more than likely all of your IVRs are probably on your headquarters server and are not part of a standalone IVR server. We do have a few deployments that do use those standalone IVR servers, and if you do have that, it will show you in here where those are. And you're going to see what they're doing. So you can see like this route point here is processing a call and playing a file. So it's playing a file back to the user. You can also see if there's any exceptions on any of the route points, any of the pending timeouts. So if there's any issues with connections there, or if there are timeouts that are actually happening, as well as there's a little general errors up at the top to let you know if there's any issues happening. And this is super handy, especially if you're having issues with people randomly not being able to get into the system. Because what this will do is allow you to not only see where the errors are occurring, if it's a specific route point, if it's all the route points, but you'll actually also be able to see the route point extensions here, which is super important. And this generally doesn't come up except for outside of the install step. But if you have just, for example, added more IVR ports or have made any adjustments to those IVR ports for any reason, If you see, for example, maybe one gets skipped. So let's say we have route point 8250.1000 through 8250.2000 on the system, but 8250.1014 doesn't exist. This will actually break the IVR application on the server because they go sequentially. So what happens is once you reach that route point that doesn't exist, the system starts erroring out trying to find that route point, and it will get stuck in a loop until it's resolved. So you will, as a result, you'll end up losing calls. This particular page will make it very easy to see where that's going on, because not only will you see a clearly defined stop where calls are working, but you'll be able to see that the IVR port in question is actually not here. In which case, the solution here is going to be, oh, I need to create that route point. It was missed somehow, and that would just be creation of the IVR on the ECC server as well as the PBX server to make sure that that's there, and that will fix the issue. If you're seeing all of these showing out of service, or if you're seeing a whole bunch of errors on the IVR ports across the board, the first thing I would do is make sure that the server can talk to the PBX environment, as that's where the route points are coming from. The other piece to that is if that is still happening and you are not able to get any calls through, that may be a time where a reboot might be necessitated just to make sure that those IVR ports come up. And I would do that as a 1-2 punch. I would check here, make sure everything looks good. If everything's erroring out, I would set up a reboot, and at the same time, I would give us a call so we can take a look and see if we can figure out what the root cause is. That way, your system will be up and operational as long as possible while we try to figure out what may have gone on. Typically, it will be something like the IVR port got moved from the HQ server or from the ECC server back to the HQ server, meaning that the contact center side can't actually use the IVR port, or a number was missed in this particular case. And one other thing that we wanted to go over as well, and this does come up fairly often, is for concurrent usage in the system, you can see at a glance in the Diagnostics Console what is allowed to actually be logged into the system at any one time. And that's going to be under your system management. And if you go to system management, you have a couple options. You have agents, you have supervisors, and you also have logged in users. And to show you logged in users, if I click on that, it's a very, very simple tool here. But you can see at a glance using this tool, see if I can expand this, there we go. You can see the number of agents you have logged in at any one time. You can see the number of maximum logged in agents that you're allowed, which is going to be based on your licensing. And remember, unlike the PBX side, ECC is based on concurrent usage. So if you have 500 agents built into the system, but you're only licensed for 50, that's fine. The only difference there is that you can only have up to 50 agents logged into the system at any one time. Once you get to agent 51, that agent will not be able to log in. They will get an error and their application will terminate. Or if you're using Connect Contact Center, the web page will not allow them to log in. If you go to this page, you might notice that your logged in agents is equal to your max logged in agents. And that will tell you that you either need to purchase more licenses or you've got people logged in that shouldn't be logged in which case you can either use the supervisor console and tools such as the agent manager, or you can use the diagnostics console to go ahead and log out the users that shouldn't be logged in. Maybe somebody forgot to log out at the end of their shift, for example. And that will allow the user in. So you have quite a bit of power at your fingertips here for that. And you can see the same for supervisors. Supervisors is actually a different tool for your users, and it uses a different set of licenses. So you can see here, there's one logged in supervisor, and in fact, that's me. And there's a maximum of 11 for this system, which also makes it important because as you can see, I am using one of those supervisor logins right now. Whenever you're done with the diagnostics console, you want to make sure you close it out because that will free up that license for other users, especially if you're low on supervisor licenses. That's something that's very important. So to recap here, the Diagnostics Console is kind of a good general overview of your contact center system and environment. It's going to tell you if it's talking to the correct servers. It's going to let you know if the IVRs are working properly. You can manipulate your agents from here in a basic form and you can clear stuck calls. This is a tool that we often use on our side when we are faced with an enterprise contact center issue in order to figure out what might be going on. So it's a very powerful tool. You do want to use some caution with it because you can accidentally clear calls that are in process or accidentally log off agents that shouldn't be logged out. So there is definitely some stuff to consider there. But it can be used to very quickly diagnose and even isolate or completely clear sporadic one-off issues, or at least provide a stopgap for those issues while you get us involved so that we can take a look. And one last thing about this application, because this does come up as well, it can only be used in one area at a specific time. So even if you're on a different machine with a different login, if somebody has the Diagnostics Console open, somebody else cannot log into the Diagnostics Console. And that's specifically to make sure that people aren't trying to do things like what I've been mentioning with clearing calls and logging people out, to make sure that that all gets funneled through one location. So that makes it doubly important that once we're done, we go ahead and we close out this application. And you'll see it doesn't exist in the system tray once you exit it out. And that will allow you to get out of that completely so that others can use it. So that's what we got for you today. It looks like we do have one quick question, so I'm going to answer that. And if we have any more, go ahead and fire them through with the question box here. Under system management, all I have are the agents and supervisor option. Kelly, that may be because you were on the 14.2 deployment. This is a Connect Contact Center system, but I will take a look at that for you. If you're using the super user or if you're using your own user, you should have all the options available because the Diagnostics Console does not strip any of your abilities based on your supervisor level. If you can log into it, you have access to everything. So I'll take a look at that for you, but more than likely that has to do with the earlier version of Contact Center. Any other questions? All right, sounds like we're good. As always, if you have any more questions that come through, you can always send us through a contact email, and we will definitely get those answered for you. Before I let you guys go for today, I just want to make sure you have our customer resources so you can get to us as quickly as possible in the event we are needed, or if you have any questions or anything of any kind that we can assist you with. For our current customer resources, you can send us an email at support@inflowcommunications.com. We also have a support portal at support.inflowcommunications.com. You can use this to actually set up a login, see all of your tickets, or if you're the overall administrator for your company, we can set you up to see all of the tickets that your organization has opened. You can actually reply from there. You can and take a look at all of the updates at a glance to make it nice and easy for you. And then if you need to get in touch with us on the phone for a more critical issue, you can give us a call at 855-946-3569 or 855-9-INFLOW. We do have a 3-ring answer policy, so you're not going to be waiting on hold for a long period of time waiting for an engineer. And once you do get an engineer, they're going to be well-versed in your environment and will be able to help you with anything you need. If you need any more information on Inflow support packages, you can send us an email at sales@inflowcommunications.com, or you can give us a call at 844-446-3569. And again, my name is Tom Lyons, Senior Engineer with Inflow Communications. I'd like to thank you for your time today, and I do hope to see you guys in the future on our future webinars. Thank you very much for your time. You guys have a wonderful day.